Chapter 1665. Who does he think did this to her? It's all because of this traitor. If he hadn't helped her deal with me, this woman would have died a long time ago, and that little silver fox would have been mine. How would I have ended up in this situation where I and the Sea Emperor's dragon court have lost all face? The third princess of the Sea Emperor was furious. Her chest heaved up and down and blood rushed to her head. But in front of so many people she couldn't just give in. If this wasn't the Sea Emperor's ceremony, she would have turned around and left. Could it be that Huang Fushi dared to stop her, Sister Wang, from apologizing to an outsider? But this was the Sea Emperor's ceremony, and there were so many people here. The third princess gritted her teeth and had no choice but to lower her head. She looked at Luo Qingtong and said hatefully, "I'm sorry. I've slandered you." The third princess gritted her teeth so hard that she almost broke her teeth. She quickly left after saying that, but before she left, she looked at Luo Qingtong with unspeakable hatred and viciousness. "Just you wait." Looking at her eyes, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. At this moment, Huang Fushi walked up to her and asked with anticipation and apprehension, "Big sister, can you stay at my place?" He looked at Luo Qingtong with a longing expression and quickly said, "I can show you around the Northern Territory." "Big sister, the Northern Territory is very fun. Can you stay for a while before leaving?" "As for Big Sister Wang and the others, I won't let them disturb you." He made a solemn promise. He was overjoyed to be able to see Luo Qingtong again. Because of some reasons, he couldn't return to the Eastern Territory for the time being. He thought that he wouldn't be able to see Luo Qingtong for a long time. He didn't expect the girl to appear here. It was a pleasant surprise. "Okay." Luo Qingtong hugged Yi Qianxian and gestured to Bei Qing, Fengyu and the others in the crowd. The latter had already rushed over after receiving the news when she was confronting the third princess of the sea. However, because Huang Fushi appeared at that time, Luo Qingtong told them to hold back for the time being. At this time, the young man invited her to live in his residence. Luo Qingtong thought about it and agreed. Firstly, she could avoid a lot of trouble if she stayed at his place. Secondly, she wanted to inquire about Bright Moon Island, and Huang Fushi might be able to help her. Luo Qingtong nodded. Huang Fushi was so happy that he jumped up and hurriedly took Luo Qingtong back to his mansion. He arranged for Luo Qingtong to stay in his courtyard, which was only separated from him by a wall. In this way, if Luo Qingtong had an accident, he would also have an accident. He wouldn't be afraid that someone would dare to secretly find trouble with Luo Qingtong. After all, assassinating the little prince of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court was not a small crime. If the third princess of the sea wasn't stupid, they wouldn't dare to do so. The young man's heart was pure and he really put her safety first. Luo Qingtong remembered this in her heart. After dinner, she said goodbye to Huang Fushi and returned to her room. After Luo Qingtong closed the door, she couldn't help but laugh. She put Yi Qianxian, who had transformed into a little silver fox, on the bed, then leaned over to him and laughed until she fell down. "Qian? Inbao? My little darling?" Chapter 1666. With a look of disgust, it raised its paw and slapped Luo Qingtong's face, pushing her away forcefully. This woman, he knew she would definitely laugh at him. He didn't want to talk to her anymore, okay? Looking at its ugly rejection, Luo Qingtong laughed even harder. She was almost out of breath. She couldn't help it. She really couldn't help it. Whenever she thought of the cold and dignified Yi Qianxian becoming this cute and uncontrollable, she couldn't help but want to laugh. Especially when she thought of Yi Qianxian turning into a fox cub and playing with toys. "Ouch, I can't, my stomach hurts." She lay on the bed and clutched her stomach from laughing. "You might as well die from the pain." Yi Qianxian glared at her from the side. He really didn't want to talk to this woman. Only this woman had a way to make him gnash his teeth in anger, but at the same time he couldn't bear to punish her. Yi Qianxian turned its head away, not wanting to look at her at all. However, Luo Qingtong pulled it back. The latter looked at it and laughed for a while. Then she took out the little cloth mouse that Yin Bao used to love playing with the most from her trash ring. Yi Qianxian looked at the little cloth mouse and his face darkened. What was this woman trying to do? If she dared to let him play with the cloth mouse like before, he would definitely be angry. Yi Qianxian flew into a rage out of humiliation. In the past, it was fine that Luo Qingtong didn't know his identity. Now that she knew that the little silver fox was him, he would rather die than do such a childish and ridiculous thing. Yi Qianxian raised its paw and slapped at the cloth mouse. That appearance was indescribably angry. However, even if he looked like a fox cub with its fur puffed up, it still looked very cute. Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian's angry appearance and couldn't hold back. She raised her hand and grabbed the little paw that it stretched out. With a smack, she kissed its little paw. Then he laughed heartily and hugged it as he rolled around on the bed. As for the little cloth mouse, Luo Qingtong had deliberately taken it out to tease Yi Qianxian. She had no intention of releasing it. Luo Qingtong knew that Yi Qianxian was having a hard time controlling the bestial nature in his body. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made so many cute and childish actions when he turned into Yinbao. In the past, she didn't know that Silver Baby was Yi Qianxian, so she naturally liked to play with it. But now that she already knew, for the sake of this man's self-esteem, Luo Qingtong felt that it was better for her to keep some things to herself. Sigh, what a waste of the toys, clothes and gadgets she had made for little Silver. From the looks of it, Yi Qianxian would never wear it again. Luo Qingtong felt a burst of regret in her heart. She was looking forward to seeing Silver Baby in those toys. Especially that little dress. Yi Qianxian looked at Luo Qingtong's pitiful little eyes. How could he not know what she was thinking? He was so angry that he raised his paw to slap her again. Its little paw was soft. When its nails weren't out, slapping Luo Qingtong was like scratching an itch. Not only was it not painful, but it was also very comfortable. Luo Qingtong didn't even dodge. She let the little silver fox's soft paw slap her face. In the end, she hugged Yi Qianxian and gave him a big kiss. Yi Qianxian really couldn't do anything to her. He coldly snorted and ignored Luo Qingtong. He closed his eyes and felt the power in his body. He wanted to suppress the power of the demon fox blood curse. Chapter 1667. His expression abruptly changed. Bang! He suddenly stood up from Luo Qingtong's arms. No. Yi Qianxian was shocked. He carefully sensed the power in his body and found that there was no demonic fox blood curse power. How was that possible? He had indeed become like this because of the demonic fox blood curse power. During the sea god ceremony, when the light from the statue of the sea god shone down, he did feel the demonic fox blood curse boiling. There was no mistake about it. Could it be because of the light? Yi Qianxian's cute fox face became serious. Qianren, what's going on? Luo Qingtong also realized that something was wrong. When Yi Qianren just closed his eyes to rest, she didn't disturb him anymore. The man obviously wanted to change back to his human form. But now, did he fail? Luo Qingtong looked at him with a serious expression. Oh whoa. Yi Qianxian wanted to answer her question, but when he opened his mouth, he let out a young fox's cry. In an instant, his face darkened. Luo Qingtong didn't laugh at him anymore. She furrowed her brows and looked at Yi Qianren. Then she lifted her hand and hugged her, bringing her to the study room. Qianren, write it down? Luo Qingtong said as she put Yi Qianxian on the study table. Then she ground the ink and pushed the inkstone in front of Yi Qianxian, indicating that he should write it down. Yi Qianxian looked at the inkstone in front of him and nodded. He dipped his claws in the ink and began to write on the paper in front of him. After he finished writing, Luo Qingtong understood the whole story. So, you can't find the power of the fox blood and can't change back? She looked at the silver fox in front of her. Okay, Yi Qianxian wanted to respond, but then he remembered that he couldn't speak, so he nodded. Alright, I got it. Luo Qingtong nodded. This matter was definitely related to the light emitted by the statue of the sea god during the sea god ceremony. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes as she thought about the direct descendants of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court who had awakened after coming into contact with the light. Now that he knew the reason, things would be easier. Let's go, Qianren. Let's go ask little Lucky what the light from the Sea Emperor's statue is. She picked up Yi Qianxian's silver fox and wiped the ink off its paws. Then she walked out of the room. In the courtyard next door, when Huang Fushi heard that Luo Qingtong was looking for him, he quickly came out to greet her. Sister. He looked at Luo Qingtong, who had returned with a face full of shock. Didn't the girl go back to rest? Could it be that someone had turned a deaf ear to his words and neglected her? As Huang Fushi thought of this, he looked sharply at the people behind Luo Qingtong. Sister, did someone bully you? As he spoke, his jade-white face was full of anger. It's fine. It has nothing to do with them. Luo Qingtong waved her hand and looked at him. Little Lucky, I have something to ask you in private. Is it convenient? As she spoke, she looked at the people behind him. Of course it's convenient. Huang Fushi waved his hand and dismissed all the people behind him. Sister, what do you want to ask? Chapter 1668. I want to ask about the sea god ceremony and the sea god statue. Luo Qingtong naturally had her reasons for asking Huang Fushi to send him away. The sea god ceremony was the most important ceremony of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. It was related to the awakening of the direct descendants of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Sure enough, Huang Fushi was shocked when he heard her question. Sister, wait. He walked to the door vigilantly and activated a mechanism. Then he walked back to Luo Qingtong and sat down in front of her. Sister, why did you suddenly ask such a question? He said, Sister, did you come to the Northern Territory for this? He frowned as he spoke, looking like he was in a difficult position. Sister, I'm afraid I can't help you. The Sea God's heart is the most precious sacred object of our Sea Emperor Dragon Court. With it, our Sea God clan can pass down generations. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Luo Qingtong. The latter didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't want your sacred object. I just want to ask. Luo Qingtong looked at the young man in front of her who was frowning so hard that his eyebrows were almost knotted. She found it funny. What did she do to make him think that she wanted that thing? However, the young man was subconsciously protecting her when he mistakenly thought that she wanted the Sea God's heart. Luo Qingtong's heart warmed. You're not? Huang Fushi was pleasantly surprised. He thought that Luo Qingtong suddenly asked this because she wanted the Sea God's heart. If that was the case, he really couldn't help Luo Qingtong. Firstly, it was the sacred object of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Secondly, he didn't have the corresponding authority. The sacred object was in the forbidden area. Unless his father gave permission, ordinary people couldn't enter. Now that he heard that Luo Qingtong just wanted to know more, he was relieved. Then he told Luo Qingtong. It turned out that the so-called miracle of the Sea God ceremony was the effect of the Sea God's heart. The Sea Emperor's heart is a holy artifact of our Sea Emperor Dragon Court. It is said that it was left behind by our ancestors a long time ago and is very important to us. Big sister, you also saw the awakening of our Sea Emperor Dragon Court's direct descendants during the Sea Emperor ceremony, right? If those who are illuminated by the Sea Emperor's heart are lucky enough, they will be able to awaken the mysterious power hidden within their bodies. He seemed to have made up his mind as he said this. Big sister, you don't know this, but none of us from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court can be considered as real people. The members of the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court possess the bloodline of the monster tribe. We are half monsters. As he spoke, he began to transform in front of Luo Qingtong. Scales grew on the young man's jade-white face and fins grew behind his ears. His entire person looked very delicate and evil. Charming and gorgeous. Something like webbing suddenly grew out of his 10 fingers and connected them together. Merman. Luo Qingtong looked at Huang Fushi's transformation in surprise. The latter's transformation looked like the legendary merman. Merman? What's that? After Huang Fushi transformed, even his voice became gorgeous. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a puzzled expression, then laughed happily. Big sister, aren't you afraid of me? He thought that after he transformed, Luo Qingtong would think that he was a monster. Chapter 1669. Other people would usually change in a certain part of their body. They wouldn't be like him, whose entire body had changed and didn't look like a human at all. Huang Fushi thought that Luo Qingtong would be afraid of him. Afraid? Of course not. Luo Qingtong looked at the little boy in front of her. Legend has it that the mermaids were extremely charming and beautiful. How could he be afraid when he was so beautiful? Huang Fushi hadn't grown up yet. When he was older in the future, he would probably be even more beautiful. Such a person was pleasing to the eye just by looking at him. What was there to be afraid of? Luo Qingtong's expression was calm. Seeing that Luo Qingtong's expression didn't seem to be fake, Huang Fushi jumped up happily. Sister, I knew you were the best. He smiled and squinted his eyes, feeling very happy in his heart. He was really afraid that Luo Qingtong would dislike him. But she asked about the Sea Emperor's heart, and he didn't want to lie to her, so he could only tell her the truth. Luo Qingtong smiled and didn't say anything. She saw all of the little boy's worries. But in the 24th century on Earth, she hadn't seen anything. So what if he was a half-demon? So what if he wasn't human? Sometimes the human heart was more terrifying than a demon. But Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows slightly. The people of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court actually had the bloodline of the demon race and were half-demons? Then the Sea Emperor's heart was probably related to the demon race. If that was the case, it was no wonder that xianxia was affected. What he was under before was the demon fox blood curse. She was afraid that after combining with the light of the Sea Emperor's heart, some unpredictable change had occurred. If she wanted him to change back to human form, she was afraid that she would have to rely on the Sea Emperor's heart. Luo Qingtong thought so and immediately asked, Xiaoxi, Does the light of the Sea Emperor's heart appear at other times except during the Sea Emperor's ceremony? No. Huang Fushi shook his head. The Sea Emperor's heart is in the forbidden area. Except during the annual Sea Emperor's ceremony, it will emerge from the forbidden area and emit light through the ancestor's statue. The rest of the time it stays in the forbidden area. Even my father and the others can't control it. That's why the annual Sea God ceremony is so grand and important to the northern region. To the people outside, this was naturally just a grand ceremony. However, to the Sea Emperor's dragon court, this was a major event. When Luo Qingtong heard this, she immediately frowned. Will it only appear during the annual Sea God ceremony? How could that be? Xianxia could not wait that long. Luo Qingtong's face was very solemn. Xianxia was too weak in his beast form. 1 year was too long and there were too many variables. No one knew what would happen. If this was a matter within the true Spill continent, then that would be fine. But if something were to happen on Xianxia's other side, Luo Qingtong's heart trembled as she thought about it. No, she had to find a way to enter the forbidden area of the Sea Emperor's dragon court and remove Xianxia's cub form. She had to let him return to his human form. Luo Qingtong prepared to bid farewell to Huang Fushi. She didn't want to make things difficult for him. Although she said that she didn't covet the Sea Emperor's heart, the people of the Sea Emperor's dragon court might not believe her. It was better not to ask Xiaoxi for help. She didn't want to implicate him. Moreover, if Luo Qingtong didn't guess wrong, the Sea Emperor's third princess and the others were watching him. Rather than asking Xiaoxi for help, she might as well secretly investigate. Luo Qingtong was about to leave. Chapter 1670. Your Highness, the Empress of the Sea is here. The person outside reported respectfully. Mother? Huang Fushi was surprised. He was about to send Luo Qingtong out when he heard this and immediately opened the door. He looked outside and saw a group of people walking over from the opposite corridor. The woman in the lead had a phoenix hairpin and red hair. Her entire body was luxurious, and her face was graceful and gentle but firm. The aura around her was extraordinary. Mother. Huang Fushi called out when he saw the woman, then guarded Luo Qingtong behind him with a vigilant expression. Mother, what happened today has nothing to do with elder sister. If you're angry, just take it out on me. Mother suddenly came to his residence in the middle of the night. Huang Fushi's first reaction was that the Empress of the Sea was here to make trouble for Luo Qingtong. He immediately protected Luo Qingtong without hesitation. Today's matter was third royal sister's fault. He didn't regret dealing with her at all. Mother shouldn't think of making trouble for Luo Qingtong because of this. When did I say I was going to make trouble for her? The Empress of the Sea looked helplessly at Huang Fushi, who was standing in front of her. Her son had returned to the Sea Emperor Dragon Court for so long, but he was still so pure and kind. She didn't know whether this was good or bad. However, if his personality wasn't so pure and kind, he wouldn't have been saved by the girl back then, right? After all, the other party was the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, who was known as the most evil person in the world. All of you leave. She waved her hand at the people around her. The latter and the others all left. When there was no one around, the Empress of the Sea looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Miss Tong, can I call you that? She removed the title of this Empress and looked at the girl in front of her with a gentle expression. It was the other party who saved her son and cured him of the poison in his body. The Empress of the Sea had learned everything from her father, old Master Lanyue. But for some reason she couldn't thank Luo Qingtong. This had always been a regret in her heart. She didn't expect the girl to come to the Northern Territory. When the Sea Empress heard from her attendant that Huang Fushi had called the other party big sister, she immediately rushed over. After all, the only person who could make his son, who was pure in nature but didn't like to get close to others, so close was the young girl who saved his life. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded towards the Ocean Empress. She could tell that he was trying to help her hide her identity. Although she didn't have to hide her identity anymore, she still appreciated the other party's kind intentions. Sea Empress. You don't have to be so polite. The Sea Empress looked at her and said, Miss Tong, shall we go in and talk? She said to Luo Qingtong. Okay. Luo Qingtong walked into the room. The appearance of the Sea Empress also gave her some new ideas. Perhaps she could enter the forbidden ground through him. Luo Qingtong didn't want to implicate Xiaoxi because the young man was too naive. If he wasn't careful enough, it would be troublesome if he was caught red-handed. But after passing through the sea, it might be different. To be able to protect Huang Fushi in the Sea Emperor's royal court for so many years and still be able to let the latter maintain such a naive and kind nature, the Sea Empress's schemes and methods were probably extraordinary. If she could make the other party help her, then this matter could be considered half done. The three of them came to the round table in the middle of the room and sat down. Chapter 1671. Of course it's to thank Miss Tong. The Sea Empress looked at Luo Qingtong and smiled. Miss Tong, thank you for saving Shi-Er in the Eastern Divine Region and curing him of the poison. The Sea Emperor and I will remember this favor in our hearts. But because of some reasons we can't thank you, so we can only ask my father, Elder Lanyue, to do it for us. We didn't deliberately hide Shi-Er's identity, but the situation was a bit special. I hope Miss Tong doesn't mind. It's fine. Luo Qingtong shook her head. Huang Fushi's situation was indeed special. She didn't want to be involved in the dispute between the forces behind him. The Sea Empress' actions were exactly what she wanted, so she didn't mind. In fact, if it weren't for Huang Fushi's pure and kind nature, Luo Qingtong might not have helped him. So the Sea Empress didn't need to apologize at all. Okay. The Sea Empress smiled and nodded at her. Then she said, I've heard about what happened at the Sea Emperor ceremony from the attendants. Don't worry, Miss Tong. She said lightly, I've already ordered the punishment of the third princess. She disgraced the reputation of the Sea Emperor's royal court, tarnished the glory of the ancestors of the Sea Emperor, and shamed the ancestors of the Sea Emperor. She won't be able to go out during this period, so she shouldn't be able to cause trouble for you. After the Sea Empress learned about what happened at the Sea Emperor ceremony, she immediately used the heaviest punishment in the Sea Emperor's royal court on the third princess. Because the evidence was conclusive, no one could plead for mercy for the third princess. The Sea Empress easily knocked the third princess unconscious. After such a lesson, the third princess probably wouldn't be able to cause trouble for Luo Qingtong for the time being. Thank you, Sea Empress. Luo Qingtong was surprised. She could hear the meaning behind the Sea Empress' words. The punishment the third princess received was probably not light. But, wasn't she the Sea Empress' daughter? Why was she so heavy-handed? The Sea Empress saw the confusion on Luo Qingtong's face and chuckled. She's indeed not my daughter. Other than Shi-Er, the other princes and princesses are all the descendants of the previous Sea Emperor and Sea Empress. It's a long story. In short, the Sea Monarch and I only have one child, Shi-Er. Therefore, Miss Tong, you should be able to guess why Shi-Er was so severely poisoned when you met him, right? The Sea Empress chuckled bitterly as she said, His Majesty and I tried our best to guard against them, but in the end, we were unable to prevent them from making a move on Shi-Er. If we hadn't met Miss Tong, I'm afraid that Shi-Er would have already bid farewell to us forever. At this point she suddenly hesitated. Then she looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Miss Tong, your medical skills are extraordinary. I wonder if you can help us take a look at the poison in His Majesty's body? What? Huang Fushi, who was comforting the Sea Empress, almost jumped up when he heard this. Mother, is father poisoned? He asked in disbelief. Why didn't I know? He had never heard of such a thing. Your father and I deliberately hid it from you. The Sea Empress looked at him and sighed. Your personality is too pure and kind. We can't let anyone know that your father was poisoned. That's why we kept it from you. Chapter 1672. If someone were to find out about this, the entire Sea Emperor's dragon court would be turned upside down. That was why they tried their best to hide it from Huang Fushi. It was the same reason why they hurriedly brought him back from the eastern region. At that time, the Sea Emperor had already discovered that something was wrong with his body. He and the Sea Empress immediately brought Huang Fushi back to see if he could awaken during the Sea Emperor's ritual. If he could, they would do their best to pave the way for him. If he couldn't, they would send him far away and arrange everything for him so that he wouldn't be overthrown and killed by the Sea Emperor's royal court of the North region. After all, if Huang Fushi couldn't awaken as the son of the Sea Emperor, he would definitely die if someone else took his place. The Sea Empress and the Sea Emperor had put a lot of thought into this. Because they were afraid of alerting the enemy, they couldn't even find Luo Qingtong to thank her and ask her to help treat him. Because those people in the dark were already watching their every move, waiting for the Sea Emperor's poison to take effect. He couldn't let them know that he was poisoned. He couldn't even let them know that he had discovered that he was poisoned. Mother. Huang Fushi's eyes turned red when he suddenly learned of such a big matter. Only now did he know why the Sea Empress and the Sea Emperor didn't let him return to the eastern region after he returned to the northern region. They couldn't even contact Luo Qingtong. He also constantly gave him all kinds of things to do to temper him. So it was because there was something wrong with father's body? Poisoned? Is it eldest brother and the others? He looked at the Sea Empress with red eyes and asked, Is it, mother? Yes. The Sea Empress couldn't help but sigh when she saw him like this. She knew that this child wouldn't be able to control himself after knowing this. Fortunately, Luo Qingtong was here. With her identity as the evil Dr. Ghost Eye, she should be able to cure His Majesty. The Sea Empress thought and immediately looked at Luo Qingtong with a hopeful expression. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at her and nodded. I can help treat the Sea Emperor, but I have a request. She said in a deep voice, I want to enter the forbidden area and see the Sea Emperor's heart. If you agree, I'll do it. Luo Qingtong was still thinking about how to persuade the Sea Empress to help her enter the forbidden area. Now there was no need to think about it. All he had to do was state his request directly. As long as the Ocean Emperor and Ocean Empress agree, this matter will not be a problem. Going in openly was better than sneaking in, and it would also save him the trouble of causing more problems. All right. The Sea Empress agreed without hesitation. To her, her son and husband were the most important. Luo Qingtong first saved Huang Fuxi's life, then helped him get rid of the poison in his body, allowing him to cultivate, and then awaken the talent of the Sea Emperor clan. Even if Luo Qingtong couldn't cure the poison in the Sea Emperor's body, she would still help Luo Qingtong. Furthermore, the Sea Emperor's heart was only useful to those from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court who possessed the bloodline of the demonic beast tribe. Only those who had enmity with the Sea Emperor Dragon Court would covet the Sea Emperor's heart. The Sea Empress believed that Luo Qingtong wouldn't do such a thing. I'll go back and tell His Majesty immediately. The Sea Empress stood up and said, Miss Tong, have a good rest. I'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded and left with her. Chapter 1673. Luo Qingtong carried Yi Qianxian back to the courtyard where she lived. She was very happy to have solved the problem of entering the forbidden area. She hugged the cute little fox and kissed it fiercely. That's great, Qianren. You'll be able to recover soon. Luo Qingtong said with a smile. Yi Qianxian snorted softly and didn't say anything. However, he was very happy that Luo Qingtong was so worried about him. Yi Qianxian wasn't worried that he wouldn't be able to recover his human form. However, the way this woman worried about him made him feel warm in his heart. Humph, he thought that this woman was eager to see him become a cute fox. Look at how she laughed at him before. Yi Qianxian snorted softly and didn't say anything. Luo Qingtong thought that he was worried. She immediately lifted him up high, put him in front of her and kissed him. Don't worry. When we go to the forbidden area, we'll definitely find a way to change back. Besides, even if we can't find a way, you'll always be like this. I won't dislike you. Luo Qingtong said with a smile. Yi Qianxian's appearance was very novel. Luo Qingtong never thought that one day the strong, proud, cold, and domineering Yi Qianxian would become such a soft and cute little thing. It was really, She couldn't help but laugh. Life's encounters were really magical. She couldn't help kissing Yi Qianxian as she said this. She might never see Yi Qianxian like this again. She still had a chance to kiss him a few more times. Otherwise it would be a loss. Once Yi Qianxian recovered his human form with his proud and cold temperament, he would never become like this for her to see or hug. Luo Qingtong thought. She hugged Yi Qianxian's two little paws and nibbled on them. In an instant, Yi Qianren felt his hair stand on end. It raised its paw and slapped Luo Qingtong's face. This woman couldn't take any compliments at all. Who asked her not to dislike it? How could he always be like this? Even if she didn't mind, he wouldn't. Seeing Yi Qianxian explode, Luo Qingtong laughed. All right, I was just joking. Who told you to keep quiet? I thought you were worried. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she smiled and grabbed its two little paws. She squeezed it and then hugged it in her arms again. By the way, Bei Qing and Feng Yu still don't know about your current situation. Let's send them a message later so that they won't worry. Yi Qianxian couldn't change back. If Bei Qing and Feng Yu became anxious, they would be in trouble if they attacked the Sea Emperor Royal Court. Luo Qingtong had already found a solution. She didn't want to cause any more trouble. Yi Qianxian cried softly. Then its face darkened. It patted Luo Qingtong with its paw. When Luo Qingtong lowered her head, it pulled out one of Luo Qingtong's palms and wrote something on her palm. Tomorrow, let Bei Qing and Feng Yu go to the Dragon Court Palace with you. Yi Qianxian wrote on her palm. Luo Qingtong carefully felt the strokes on her palm. After recognizing this sentence, she smiled. Okay. She was going to treat the Sea Emperor tomorrow. She didn't know what would happen in the Dragon Court Palace. Yi Qianxian was too weak now. Luo Qingtong would definitely take Bei Qing and Feng Yu with her. Chapter 1674. This man really didn't forget to worry about her all the time. Why didn't he think about himself? Luo Qingtong looked at the little fox in her arms who was deep in thought. She couldn't help but want to laugh. However, thinking about Yi Qianxian's temper, she immediately suppressed it. Let's go back and sleep. We'll go to the Dragon Court Palace tomorrow. Just as Luo Qingtong carried Yi Qianxian back to their room, in the residence of the third princess of the Sea Empire, a loud commotion instantly rang out. Get out of here. The third princess of the Sea Empire was half lying on her jade bed. Her entire back to her buttocks was a bloody mess. She was in so much pain that she was gasping for air as she swept all the things on her bed out of the room. That bitch Sea Empress was definitely using this as a pretext to make a fuss. She deliberately beat her up like this. Didn't she just attack an outsider from an unknown region? So what if she slandered her? She actually used the most severe punishment in the clan to beat her to death. And that bitch from an alien region. Bastard, if she didn't let the Sea Empress have something on her, how would she be beaten up like this? She Huangfushi and the Sea Empress all deserved to die. The third princess of the Sea Empire was angry and in pain. Her body trembled. At this moment, a figure suddenly stepped in from outside the door. He was almost hit by the thing she swept away. He immediately shouted coldly, "What's wrong with you? Are you done? Brother?" Hearing this voice, the third princess of the Sea Empire raised her head and saw the luxurious man standing outside the door. She immediately shouted angrily, "What are you shouting for? I was beaten up like this and you still scold me. I'm your biological sister. Why don't you shout at that bitch Sea Empress?" "Shut up." The eldest prince of the Sea Empire looked at her and frowned. "I just came back and heard that you were punished for causing trouble at the Sea Emperor ceremony. What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to behave during this period of time? Wait until he's dead. What can't you do? Do you have to go against the Sea Empress and Huangfushi now? Do you have a brain?" He said coldly. "Yes, I'm brainless." The third princess looked at Huang Xiaolong with a sullen expression. "How long have you been poisoning me? Do you see any reaction from him? Every day you tell me to bear with it. I've been trampled on by them. If we continue to endure, when Huangfushi becomes powerful, both you and I will die." The third princess was infuriated. Big Brother said that he had succeeded in poisoning the Ocean Emperor. And the result? They had waited for a long time, but the other party did not show any signs of being poisoned. She was starting to doubt whether her elder brother was telling the truth. "Shut up." The first prince of the sea looked at her coldly. He raised his hand and closed the door with a gust of wind. At the same time he laid down a layer of his own aura barrier. Then he looked at the third princess and said, "The poison has succeeded. That old bastard has been enduring all this time. I've already received confirmation. Otherwise, why do you think I suddenly rushed back from outside?" "But you." The first prince of the sea looked at her coldly and said, "You fought with an outlander in the Sea Emperor ceremony over a silver fox. You're really making me proud." He looked at the third princess with a cold expression. If she wasn't his biological sister and still had some use, he would have killed her long ago. She couldn't do anything right, but she was good at ruining things. No. Chapter 1675. It was transformed from a human. As soon as she said this, the Sea Emperor Crown Prince's face turned cold. He walked in front of the Sea Emperor's third princess and restrained himself from slapping her in the face. He kept telling himself that she was still injured. If he got angry, he would most likely kill her on the spot. But the Sea Emperor Crown Prince still couldn't hold back his anger. He gloomily said, "Third sister, do you think your big brother is a fool? Their Sea Emperor clan had the bloodline of the monster race, but they couldn't completely transform into beast form. Not to mention others. She actually told him that the silver fox was transformed from a human. Did she think he was stupid? If a monster race person appeared, how could they not sense it? Not to mention, the true monster race was recorded in the ancient records of their clan. It was impossible for them to appear in the true Spill continent. Big brother, it's true," the Sea Emperor's third princess hurriedly said. She looked at her big brother's cold eyes and quickly said, "I saw it transform in the Sea Emperor ritual with my own eyes. That's why I desperately tried to steal it. Big brother, you have to believe me. That is a very handsome man. I think he either obtained some lucky chance that allowed him to transform into a beast form, or he has the bloodline of the monster race, the purest kind. Big brother, you also know that the purer the monster race, the harder it is to awaken the power in their body. But no matter what, big brother, this is a lucky chance for both of us. Think about it, if we can obtain him and obtain the secret techniques and inheritances of the monster race from his mouth, what do we need to be afraid of? And, the third princess of the Sea Empire licked her lips. She recalled the glimpse she had of Yi Qinren's handsome face, which was so beautiful that it didn't seem like a mortal's. If she could be together with such a man, big brother, think about it, if we can control him and obtain the continuation of his bloodline, the Sea Emperor's royal court in our hands will be completely carried forward. At that time, we will no longer be limited to the northern domain, but will rule the entire True Spill continent, and even higher places. Big brother, don't you want to? The third princess of the Sea God Empire's eyes lit up as she spoke. The first prince narrowed his eyes at her. Are you sure everything you said is true? If that was the case, then he would have to get his hands on the silver fox no matter the cost. In that case he had wronged his sister. Who else knows about the silver fox? No. The third princess quickly shook her head. I'm probably the only one who saw it. However, that woman from another realm that Huang Fushi is protecting definitely knows about it. She's with a man. Judging from the way the man had protected the silver fox without any hesitation and was willing to pay any price for it, he must have known that the silver fox was the man she was looking for. When the third princess of the sea thought that the man she fancied had been snatched by someone else, a sinister look flashed in her eyes. That bitch didn't know what was good for her. She snatched the man she fancied and even caused her to be beaten up like this. Chapter 1676. She instigated with a vicious look in her eyes. The first prince of the sea looked at her. How could he not know what his sister was thinking? However, this was indeed a hidden danger. That foreign woman knew Huang Fushi. He couldn't let them have a chance to surpass him. That little silver fox was his, and so was the throne of the Sea Emperor royal court. Don't worry, that woman and Huang Fushi won't be able to escape. The first prince's eyes were cold. Before he came back, he already had an idea and arrangement. Now that the silver fox was involved, it was better to move forward with the plan. It would also prevent undue delay. As he thought about it, he turned and walked out. I'll contact the others now. You stay here and recuperate. Don't cause any more trouble for me. We'll take action tomorrow. Yes. Brother, I got it. The third princess was pleasantly surprised. Take action tomorrow? She rolled her eyes for a while, then laughed out loud proudly. Ah. A bunch of B** cheese, you'll be in trouble tomorrow. Especially that bitch from the outer realm. Do you think we can't touch you just because you're related to Huang Fushi? Haha. She laughed out loud. Then, she suddenly raised her voice and coldly said to the people outside, Men, bring me the best bottle of medicine that you've obtained in the past. No matter what, she couldn't be absent tomorrow. She wanted to see that woman's expression of despair. Then, as the victor, he would snatch away the little fox that the man had transformed into. She would let the other party know that fighting with her would not end well. After tomorrow, she would make sure that woman couldn't even crawl out of Sea Emperor Island. While the third princess of the sea was having countless vicious thoughts, Luo Qingtong carried Yi Qianxian back to their room and had a good night's sleep. Early the next morning, the carriage from the Dragon Court Palace stopped at the gate of the prince's mansion. Huang Fushi, who hadn't returned all night, jumped out of the carriage. He looked at Luo Qingtong, who was walking over, and called out, Sister. Yes. Luo Qingtong looked at him. The little boy's eyes were obviously still red and swollen. She didn't know how long he had cried last night. She was still a child after all. Luo Qingtong patted his head and whispered, Don't worry, your father will be fine. She would do her best to save the Ocean Emperor. Yes. Huang Fushi looked at her and nodded heavily. He believed Luo Qingtong's words. The girl was the only light he had seen in his life when he was at his most desperate. She will definitely be able to save Imperial Father. Just like how he had saved her. Sister, let's go. Huang Fushi jumped onto the carriage and extended his hand towards Luo Qingtong. It was supposed to be someone else who came to pick up Luo Qingtong, but he was worried and anxious about Luo Qingtong's arrival, so he came in person. Luo Qingtong put her hand in his and let him pull her up. By the way, I also brought some people with me. They should be able to enter the Dragon Court Palace together, right? Luo Qingtong looked at him and asked. After Bei Qing and Feng Yu received her letter, they waited at the gate of the prince's mansion early in the morning. He was following right behind her. Chapter 1677. Okay. Luo Qingtong nodded. The carriage sped towards the Dragon Court Palace. While Luo Qingtong and the others were heading towards the Dragon Court Palace, The first prince and the third princess of the Sea Emperor also appeared in the Dragon Court Palace. Why are the first prince and the third princess so free to come to the Dragon Court Palace? In the main hall of the Dragon Court Palace, the Sea Empress, dressed in luxurious clothes, received the first prince and the third princess of the Sea Emperor. She looked puzzled and vigilant. The third princess of the Sea Emperor had just been beaten by her yesterday and was badly mutilated when she was carried back. Logically speaking, she had to be bedridden for a few days. How could she appear in the Dragon Court Palace today? And the first prince? The Sea Empress looked at the luxurious young man in front of her. He had been transferred to the most remote sea area to patrol. According to her and the Sea Emperor's estimation, he would not be able to return for at least a month or two. How could he suddenly appear here? Could it be that he had sensed something? The Sea Empress' heart tightened as she thought of this. However, she was also someone who had experienced many battles and appeared very calm. From her words and actions, there was nothing wrong with her at all. I'm worried about the Sea Emperor. I heard that His Majesty was not feeling well recently, so I specially came back to see him. The first prince's expression was indifferent when he heard the Sea Empress' words. His eyes were cold and he did not hide it. His return this time was very strange. If he deliberately concealed it, the other party would think too much. It was better to let them know that he came back on purpose and that he had other motives. Anyway, after today they would not be able to jump around. Looking at the coldness in his eyes, the Sea Empress' heart sank instantly. As expected, the other party had sensed something and purposely came to test him. She clenched her teeth slightly. Fortunately, they had already invited Luo Qingtong to help. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. These people had been spying on him just as His Majesty had said. They were waiting for him to show signs of being poisoned, and they would immediately attack him. The Sea Empress was furious, but she did not show it on her face. I'm afraid the first prince has misheard. His Majesty's health is very good. There is no problem. Her expression was indifferent. Is that so? Then I would like to invite His Majesty to come out and meet us. The first prince's expression was cynical. After all, with such words spreading and, "You're not one of us, Sea Empress. It's normal for us to be worried." Do you think so? The meaning behind his words was very obvious. He was afraid that the Sea Empress would murder the Sea Emperor. Angered by his words, the Sea Empress was about to stand up. Chapter 1678. She snorted at the Sea King and Empress. She wasn't afraid of what they would do to her. Back then, in order to marry the Empress, the Sea King swore in front of the Sea King's statue that he would treat them well for the rest of his life. He wouldn't attack them for no reason, let alone harm them. Before they were caught, no matter how angry the Sea King and Empress were, they couldn't do anything to them. The first prince of the sea looked at the Sea King with a cold expression. His sleeves fluttered slightly, and then a sly smile appeared on his lips. I was too anxious and worried just now and said the wrong thing. Please forgive me, Your Majesty and Empress. As he spoke, he casually bowed to the Sea King and Empress. Then he said, Since Your Majesty is fine, my sister and I will take our leave first. As he spoke, he pulled the third princess and prepared to leave. At this moment, Luo Qingtong and Huang Fushi walked in from outside. Eldest brother, third sister? Huang Fushi was instantly alarmed when he saw the two of them. He subconsciously shielded Luo Qingtong behind him. Then he remembered that they poisoned the Sea King and couldn't help but ask sternly, What are you doing here? The Dragon Court Palace doesn't welcome you. Humph. The third princess of the Sea Emperor looked at him and laughed coldly. Then she glanced at Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianren, who was in her arms. Instantly, a trace of uncontrollable jealousy appeared in her eyes. The wound on her back was still throbbing and she could barely walk. But the other party was living so well under Huang Fushi's protection. How could she not hate them? And that little fox, it should have been hers. But it didn't matter. After today she would make them extremely miserable. The third princess sneered at Luo Qingtong and said, You can come and you can even bring an outsider. Why, as the direct bloodline of the Sea Emperor royal court, can't we come? Huang Fushi, have you been disloyal for a long time? You want to turn our Sea Emperor Dragon Court into an outsider's territory? Her words instantly made Huang Fushi glare angrily at her. Nonsense. Humph, whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you'll know in the future. The third princess' words had a double meaning. Her gaze swept across Luo Qingtong's body like a venomous snake. She then said coldly, You better be careful. The path to the Dragon Court Palace isn't easy. Be careful that you come, but you can't leave. She sneered and left. The first prince of the sea stared deeply at Yi Qianxian, who was in Luo Qingtong's arms. Complete beast form? Demon transformation? Interesting. After I get my hands on him, I'll have to study the secrets on his body. As long as he didn't kill the other party, there was no limit to his methods. He stared deeply at Yi Qianxian before leaving with the third princess of the sea. After they left, Luo Qingtong finally raised her head that had been lowered. The third princess and her brother? They're really looking for trouble. She chuckled and whispered to Yi Qianxian. The little fox in her arms was already so angry that its fur was about to fly off. If not for Luo Qingtong holding it, it would have already rushed out. Chapter 1679. In an instant, that pair of originally round and extremely cute little fox eyes exuded incomparable hostility. It pulled out Luo Qingtong's hand and drew strokes on her palm. Tonight, let Bei Qing and Feng Yu go. As for what they were going to do, naturally, it was to destroy them. Yi Qianxian did not want to see these two people in front of him and Luo Qingtong again. Especially the way the eldest prince of the Sea Emperor looked at him. If Yi Qianren's guess was right, the third princess of the Sea Emperor must have seen him when he had transformed. That was why she could not forget him and wanted him for herself. Even if she had to clash with Huang Fuxi and the Empress of the Sea, she would not hesitate. And the eldest prince of the Sea Emperor must have found out about him from the other party. These two people must not be left alive. Don't worry, we don't have to wait until tonight. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She had also noticed what Yi Qianxian had noticed. Thinking that Yi Qianxian had been discovered to have transformed into a silver fox and that the other party had obviously coveted him, Luo Qingtong's eyes were stained with murderous intent and coldness. Fortunately, the man's identity had not been exposed. This matter could still be remedied. Luo Qingtong looked up at the Sea Emperor and the Empress of the Sea in front of the hall. The two of them were very apologetic. They looked at the backs of the eldest prince of the sea and the third princess as they left, their faces full of anger. If it were not for the oath they had made, they would never have let the other party and the others be so presumptuous. Sorry Miss Tong, you have been wronged. The Sea Emperor and the Empress of the Sea looked at Luo Qingtong with apologetic faces. It's okay. Luo Qingtong shook her head indifferently. I'm fine, but the Sea Emperor is in trouble. As she spoke, she looked at the Sea Emperor, the bloody light in her eyes rising layer by layer. Through her eye technique, she could clearly see that the poison in the Sea Monarch's body was constantly being stimulated violently. If one had to use an example, it would be the scene of a chemical experiment. The poison in the Sea Emperor's body seemed to have been stimulated by something, and now it was taking effect. If this continued, the poison that was supposed to take effect in a month or even later would immediately erupt in a short period of time. If she guessed correctly, it should be the work of the first prince and the third princess who had just visited. What? Hearing her words, the Sea Monarch, the Sea Empress and Huang Fuxi were all shocked. Miss Tong, what do you mean? High Emperor's heart was burning with anxiety, and Huang Fuxi almost burst into tears. Elder sister, what's going on? Can't my father's poison be cured? His eyes immediately turned red. No, his poison was triggered by someone else. If nothing unexpected happens, it will erupt in 2 hours at most. At that time, there will be no cure. As soon as Luo Qingtong said this, the Sea Empress felt dizzy. If not for the Sea Emperor supporting her, she would have collapsed to the ground. Miss Tong, can it be cured? She looked at Luo Qingtong with reddened eyes. She used all her strength to restrain herself from crying on the spot. She and the Sea Emperor had known each other for half of their lives. For her, the Sea Emperor went against the power of the entire Sea Emperor's royal court and insisted on marrying her. He even swore an oath to keep the first prince and the third princess alive because of her. Chapter 1680. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at her and nodded. But I need these things. Luo Qingtong said, listing all the things she needed. You'd better hurry or he won't be able to hold on. Luo Qingtong looked at the Sea Emperor, whose face was already pale. The other party's strength was very strong. She didn't know if it was because of the demon clan's blood in his body, but he was forcibly suppressing the poison from erupting. But that was all. The poison was now being stimulated more and more. At most, in a quarter of an hour he would not be able to suppress it. At that time, the poison would erupt even more violently, and the damage to the Sea Emperor's body would be greater. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for the Sea Emperor. Even if he was saved, his body would be greatly damaged. Okay. The Sea Empress wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said in a deep voice, I'll go prepare. She also thought of what Luo Qingtong thought of. The poison in the Sea Emperor's body had been suppressed all this time, and it was impossible for it to suddenly erupt. The only possibility was that the eldest prince and the third princess had just arrived. She thought that they had just come to probe, but she didn't expect that they had already confirmed that the Sea Emperor was poisoned. This time they came to take his life. Once the poison was stimulated, it would erupt in at most 2 hours. Had the eldest prince and the third princess already made the corresponding arrangements in the Dragon Court Palace, and were just waiting to take action? She must not let them notice the movements here and prevent Luo Qingtong from saving the Sea Emperor. At this moment, the Sea Empress was particularly determined. She would definitely prepare these things silently, and would not let the eldest prince and the third princess have the slightest chance to take advantage of it. She said and left directly. Luo Qingtong asked Huang Fushi to help the Sea Emperor sit down, and then let him release the strength that was suppressing the poison. Boom. With Luo Qingtong's voice, the Sea Emperor released the strength that was suppressing the poison in his body. In an instant, the poison in his body erupted. A black mist escaped from the Sea Emperor's body, forming a strange poison pattern around his body. These toxins had spread all over the Sea Emperor's body and were increasing at an extremely fast rate. As soon as the poison appeared, the Sea Emperor's face turned green and black. There was a red dot between his eyebrows and on his temples. At this moment, the light from these 3 red dots was faintly discernible under the invasion of the black gas in his body. Once these 3 red dots disappeared, it meant that the poison in the Sea Emperor's body had entered his heart, and he was beyond saving. Luo Qingtong looked at the 3 flashing red dots. She raised her hand and sent several streams of energy into Neptune's body. With her eye technique, she was able to see the spread of the poison in the other party's body. She could even see which part of the poison was the most intense and severe. If it wasn't for the fact that the poison in Poseidon's body had been stimulated to its current level in a short period of time, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to treat him. He would use his qi to force out all the poison in his body. Furthermore, it would not harm him in the slightest. But now it was hard to say. Luo Qingtong raised her hand to suppress the poison that was spreading in his body, and at the same time, to relieve the part of his body that was stimulated the most intensely. Step by step, she relieved the poison in his body. Chapter 1681. Not far from the Dragon Court Palace, the third princess looked at the main hall and said to the eldest prince, "Big brother, are you sure there's no problem this time?" "Of course." The eldest prince sneered. "The information I received can't be wrong. Our good uncle, the Sea Emperor, is indeed poisoned. I've already filled the entire main hall with the smell of the medicinal liquid. As long as he's here, he can't hide. When the smell meets the poison in his body, it will automatically drill into his body. With such a large amount of smell, plus the fact that he has been suppressing the poison all this time, his strength has been greatly depleted. Once it's activated, he'll definitely die." The eldest prince sneered. The Sea Empress thought that he was here to test the waters. In fact, he didn't want to act so quickly. After confirming that the Sea Emperor was poisoned, he just needed to slowly exhaust the opponent. After all, no matter how strong the opponent was, how long could he suppress the poison in his body? Why should he do something that would give him a chance to use against him? Once the Sea Emperor was dead, with Huang Fushi's stupidity that bordered on kindness, wouldn't it be easy for him to play him to death? However, the matter of the little fox made him change his mind. He couldn't let Huang Fushi and the others know any secrets about the monster clan. Otherwise, no matter how stupid the other party's personality was, under absolute martial strength, his little scheme would not be able to work. It was with this in mind that the first prince of the sea chose this moment to make his move. "All right." The third princess laughed proudly when she heard this. "Ah, that bitch thinks that she'll be fine with Huang Fushi's protection. Big brother, after we're done with the Sea Empress and Huang Fushi, you have to leave that woman to me," she said to the crown prince of the Sea Emperor with a vicious expression on her face. "Do as you wish." The first prince frowned slightly, but he still agreed in the end. That woman was actually very beautiful. If it were any other time, he would never agree to let the third princess deal with her so easily. He would definitely keep her in his palace and enjoy her. When he was tired of her, he would take her out and let the third princess deal with her. But for some reason he felt a faint sense of threat from Luo Qingtong. Even the first prince didn't know where this sense of threat came from. However, he knew that he could not let the other party live so easily. "So, this delicious delicacy, forget about it?" "Good. Thank you, big brother." The third princess of the Sea Emperor's heart was filled with pride after getting the first prince's approval. Ah, that bitch, see how I'll deal with her later. She smiled viciously as if she had already seen Luo Qingtong's miserable and desperate appearance after being taught a lesson by her. Daring to go against him, the other party probably didn't know how to spell the word, death. In the main hall, the Sea Empress had already calmly gathered all the things that Luo Qingtong needed without anyone noticing. Miss Tong, everything is ready. She rushed into the inner hall and said to Luo Qingtong. Alright, you guys wait outside. I'll get rid of the poison immediately. Luo Qingtong said to them. At the same time she asked Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the others to guard the door of the main hall. No one was allowed to enter. Chapter 1682. The first prince looked at the sky, estimated the time, and suddenly waved his hand. Let's go. Let's pay our respects to our good uncle. The smile in the depths of his eyes was sinister and treacherous. The third princess of the Sea Emperor laughed out loud. Haha, let's go. The group rushed towards the main hall of the Dragon Court Palace. Along the way, all the guards who rushed out of the Dragon Court Palace were killed. The first prince of the sea had been plotting for so long, and his sudden attack was not something the guards of the Dragon Court Palace could handle. In the main hall of the Dragon Court Palace, Luo Qingtong was focused on forcing the poison out of the Sea Emperor's body. Once the things she needed were here, she immediately forced out all the poison that she had sealed in the Sea Emperor's body. Swoosh. Little by little, the poison was forced out from various parts of the Sea Emperor's body, and finally gathered together to form a drop of extremely dense, ink-black liquid. Luo Qingtong wrapped it in a colorless, transparent liquid, and then put it into a jade bottle she had prepared. Even through the jade bottle, she could still feel the violent surge of the poison's aura as it continued to catalyze. The Empress and Huangfu looked at the jade bottle with pale faces. They rejoiced in their hearts but also felt a lingering fear. If not for Luo Qingtong, the Sea Emperor would not have been able to escape the fate of death from the poison today. He had been painstakingly suppressing such a violent poison. Once it erupted, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Sir Evil Doctor, thank you. There were no outsiders here, so the Sea Emperor did not call Luo Qingtong Miss Tong. He apologized to Luo Qingtong in a weak voice. He could feel the strength in his body slowly recovering. The feeling of being on the brink of death was gone. This was the most refreshing and comfortable he had felt since he was poisoned. He could feel that all the poison in his body was gone. Under such intense poison, Luo Qingtong not only saved his life, but also removed all the poison in his body, not leaving a trace behind. Such medical skills were truly frightening. The name of Evil Dr. Ghost I was indeed worthy of its name. The Sea Emperor struggled to get up and thank Luo Qingtong. Right at this moment, a figure rushed in from outside. Your Majesty, the Empress of the Sea, the first prince and his men are charging in. That person was covered in blood and knife wounds. It was obvious that he had escaped from the battle with the first prince and the others and had come to report. Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the others didn't stop him because Luo Qingtong had finished treating Poseidon's injuries. They allowed him to rush in. As soon as this person spoke, the faces of the Ocean Emperor, the Ocean Empress, and the others turned cold. Good, you came at the right time. The Sea Emperor sneered. He had tolerated the first prince and the others for a long time. After the death of the previous Emperor of the Sea, the first prince of the sea and the others were his descendants. Not only were they unable to ascend to the throne, but they were also able to enjoy the honor of being a prince and princess. This was already unprecedented. Because of the vow he had made to marry Empress Hai, he had always tolerated them and could not do anything to them. Since they were courting death, he would fulfill their wishes. Let them in. Chapter 1683. Back then, the Sea Emperor had sworn that unless the first prince and the others committed an unforgivable crime, he would not act against them. Therefore he had no choice but to tolerate them all this time. It wasn't that he didn't know that the first prince of the sea god and the others had attacked him and his wife, but because he couldn't get a hold of the other party's weakness, he couldn't do anything to them. At this moment he was going to catch all of them in one fell swoop and uproot them. He had to let the first prince of the Sea Emperor and the others play their part. The evidence was irrefutable so that they couldn't make a comeback, and there was no room for them to refute. He wanted to completely eliminate the source of trouble. Alright, your Majesty doesn't need to worry about me. Luo Qingtong naturally knew what the Sea Emperor meant. She didn't know about the internal conflicts within the Sea Emperor's dragon court. However, looking at the Sea Emperor and Sea Empress reaction, It was clear that they had no choice but to tolerate the first prince and the others. At this moment he wanted to grab hold of the other party's weakness so that they would never be able to make a comeback. Luo Qingtong was naturally willing to cooperate with them. In fact, she purposely brought up the matter of the poison in the Sea Emperor's body because she wanted the Sea Emperor and the others to make plans to eliminate the first prince and the others. The other party and the others were jumping around too happily. Luo Qingtong didn't intend to pay much attention to them, but who told them to have designs on Yi Qianxian? The man's identity hadn't been discovered yet. What if it was discovered? The dignified underworld venerable had turned into a silver fox without any attack power. Once this news spread out, it would immediately attract the attention of countless people. Luo Qingtong would never let such a thing happen. All right. Neptune looked at Luo Qingtong and nodded. Then, with a bang, he punched himself in the chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. Your Majesty. Father. When the Sea Empress and Huang Fushi saw this scene, they immediately rushed over. Their faces were filled with anxiety and worry. It's fine. The Sea Emperor waved his hand. He had just spat out a mouthful of blood that had accumulated in his chest. It did not cause any harm to his body. Instead, it helped him recover his strength. If he didn't fake it, how would the first prince of the sea and the others believe that his plan had succeeded and that he was in imminent danger? The Sea Emperor sneered. He was going to make all of these ingrates in the Sea Emperor's dragon court reveal their true colors and consign them to eternal damnation. Take my message talisman and mobilize the dragon court guards immediately. Summon all of the dragon court guards and elders to me. As the Sea Emperor spoke, he tossed the talisman he carried on him to Huang Fushi. The talisman could only be used when he was present. The Sea Emperor's first prince and the others were certain that he would die, so they weren't afraid of Huang Fushi and the Sea Empress. To put it bluntly, they were bullying the Sea Empress, Huang Fushi and the others. They weren't from the Northern Territory. When he died, the Sea Emperor's first prince, who had the bloodline of the previous generation of the Sea Emperor, could easily take over the throne. Therefore, every generation of the Sea Emperor would degrade or kill the bloodline of the previous generation of the Sea Emperor so that they wouldn't have any chance to come into contact with the core of the Sea Emperor's dragon court. They were afraid that the other party would retaliate one day. However, in order to marry the Sea Empress, who wasn't from the Northern Territory, the Sea Emperor was forced to swear an oath, leaving behind the Sea Emperor's first prince and the others. Chapter 1684. Bam. After the Sea Emperor was done with his arrangements, the door to the main hall's courtyard was kicked open by someone not long after. The first prince and the third princess led a group of important figures from the Sea Emperor's royal court and strode towards the main hall. Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the rest had already received Luo Qingtong's orders. They immediately retreated far away to prevent the first prince of the Ocean Empire from noticing them. This was to prevent a fight from breaking out and ruining the evil physician's plan. Bam. The first prince and the others kicked open the main hall's door and saw the pale-faced Sea Emperor vomiting blood in the main hall. They immediately laughed out loud proudly. Your Majesty, my good uncle, didn't you say that your body is very good? The Sea Emperor's crown prince walked into the hall with an arrogant look on his face. He no longer needed to pretend to be humble and respectful. All his pretense was torn apart at this moment. The people from the Sea Emperor's royal court who followed behind him all smiled sarcastically and proudly when they heard the first prince's words. To them, the Sea Emperor's body was naturally very good. Did you do it? The Sea Emperor clutched his chest and pretended to be in pain as he looked at the first prince and the others who were walking towards him proudly. He glanced at the people from the Sea Emperor's royal court behind them and memorized their faces. These people were very respectful in front of him, and they had never shown any disloyal thoughts. There were also people who had reprimanded the first prince and the others for their disrespectful actions and had won his trust. Good. Very good. These people really know how to put on an act. If not for today's show, he would still be in the dark about many things. While the Sea Emperor's face was filled with hatred, the first prince of the sea and the other princes were laughing arrogantly. That's right, uncle. Your Majesty, didn't you already guess this? Otherwise, you wouldn't have purposely hidden the fact that you were poisoned for so long. Unfortunately, you still can't hide it from me. The first prince was very proud. He walked in front of the Sea Emperor, leaned over with an arrogant expression, and whispered into his ear. I know you asked Huang Fushi to mobilize the dragon court guards. But what's the use? The Sea Emperor was poisoned, and the Sea Empress and Huang Fushi were present. I suspect that they are plotting to murder His Majesty. He straightened up and sneered in front of the Sea Emperor. Tell me, after you die, will the dragon court guards listen to me, or will they listen to Huang Fuxi, that bastard you had with a foreign woman?" The first prince's words caused the Sea Emperor to tremble in anger. He almost lost control of his impulse to attack. Luo Qingtong watched from the side with a slight smile. This Sea Emperor's crown prince's skill at courting death was top-notch. From the looks of it, she didn't need to do anything else. She just needed to watch how the other party dug his own grave. "See, didn't I tell you? There's no need to wait until tonight." Luo Qingtong smiled and pinched the silver fox's paw. Today she would let the first prince and the others reap what they sowed. Xianxia snorted coldly and didn't say anything. At this moment, a sharp and proud laugh suddenly rang in Luo Qingtong's ears. "Ah, slut, what do you think?" Chapter 1685. Since you're here today, don't even think about leaving. The third princess of the Sea Emperor looked at Luo Qingtong with a smug and cold expression. When her gaze swept past Xianxia in her arms, she became even more smug and arrogant. This man was going to be hers very soon. "Snatch that little fox for me. Also, scratch her face and throw her into the camp of the sea beasts outside." She casually flicked her fingernails and looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold smile. "This is the breeding season of those sea beasts. They should be very happy to welcome a fresh product like you." As she spoke, she looked at Luo Qingtong's beautiful face viciously and said, "After all, it's not easy to find such a high-quality product among humans. Don't you agree?" As she spoke, she proudly waited for Luo Qingtong's expression of despair and panic. This woman, she thought that she could do nothing to her just because she had Huang Fuxi. Now, didn't she still fall into her hands? Didn't she refuse to give her the silver fox that man had turned into? Then I'll let her have a taste of being ridden by thousands of beasts. The demonic beasts in the sea were not like other demonic beasts. Just the size of that thing was enough to stab her to death. She wanted the other party to die in incomparable pain and despair. How dare she snatch her man? The third princess of the Sea Emperor sneered, but she did not notice that the blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes was already rising layer by layer. Riding by thousands of beasts? She should leave this taste for herself to enjoy. Luo Qingtong's smile was bloodthirsty and cold. She looked at the smug third princess of the Sea Emperor and pressed down on Xianxia in her arms, who could no longer control himself and whose eyes were spitting fire. In a flash, she appeared in front of the third princess of the Sea Emperor. Bang! Before the other party could react, Luo Qingtong raised her hand and pressed her to the ground. She grabbed her throat and raised her hand to feed her a pill. Cough cough. "How dare you? You, what did you feed me?" The third princess couldn't react in time. By the time she regained her senses, the pill had already melted into her mouth. In an instant, she covered her throat and glared at Luo Qingtong angrily. "Men, arrest her." She looked flustered and exasperated. "Make her tell me what she fed me. After that, we will skin them alive and pull out their tendons before sending them to the marine beast barracks." However, as soon as she spoke, a voice even more furious than her had already resounded deafeningly through the hall. "Shut up. You should be the ones to be arrested." The Sea Emperor's face was filled with anger. When the first prince of the Sea Emperor confessed to his crimes, he couldn't hold himself back anymore. Calling his wife a slut and calling his son a bastard. They even want to usurp the throne. These people are very good. Very good. Now that he had enough evidence, how could the Sea Emperor let them continue to be so arrogant? Not to mention, the third princess of the Sea Emperor was going to attack Luo Qingtong. Bah! Where did she get the guts to do that? If not for the demonic physician, he would have been at their mercy. How could the Sea Emperor allow them to touch Luo Qingtong? "Men, arrest them all." Bang bang bang. As the Sea Emperor's voice rang out, numerous figures appeared around the hall in an instant. Chapter 1686. These people were none other than the dragon court guards that Huang Fuxi had deployed. They had already received the message talisman and rushed to the main palace through the secret passage. When they heard the order from the Sea King, they immediately rushed out from the inner palace. Behind them were a group of respected elders from the Sea King tribe that Huang Fuxi had invited. At this moment, they were all filled with righteous indignation as they looked at the first prince and the rest. These elders might not necessarily support Huang Fuxi. However, the actions of the first prince and the third princess had violated the taboo of the tribe. They had plotted against the Sea King and usurped his power. This was a taboo that would lead to the decline of the tribe. They could not tolerate it. "You." The first prince wanted to laugh out loud as he thought that the Sea King was making a futile last-ditch effort. However, when he saw the group of dragon court guards rushing out, followed by the elders from the Sea King royal court, his expression changed instantly. At this moment, the Sea King straightened his body. Bam! With a slap, he sent the first prince of the sea flying into the air. He spun a dozen times in the air before landing heavily on the ground. The surging energy that surged out of his body did not look like a dying person at all. There was not even a trace of being poisoned. In an instant, the crown prince was struck dumb. He lay on the ground, unable to regain his senses. How could this be? He stared at the Sea King, who was surrounded by surging energy. He could not believe his eyes. The Sea King was indeed poisoned. There was no doubt about it. All of the catalysts that he had set up earlier had been absorbed by the other party. How could he be fine? The crown prince couldn't believe what he was seeing. The third princess of the Sea Emperor's shrill voice calling for people to capture Luo Qingtong also stopped abruptly, stuck in her throat. She watched in horror as her royal brother was sent flying. The Sea King was fine. How could this be? If the Sea King was fine, then they... The third princess of the Sea Monarch's body trembled violently at the thought of this. At this moment, an incomparably hot and spicy aura suddenly rose from all over her body, burning her as if she was being burned by a raging fire. Ah! The third princess of the Sea Emperor's body trembled violently. She desperately wanted to get something to extinguish the fire in her body. However, when she tore off her clothes and pounced on a guard of the Sea Emperor's dragon court, who was already trembling in fear at the turn of events, she discovered that the man was unable to extinguish the fire burning in her body. Instead, he was only making it more and more intense. When the other party entered her, she felt a burning pain in her lower body as if it was being burned. Ah! She screamed in agony, then turned around and rushed out naked. She wanted something cold, something cold. She was going to be burned to death. The third princess rushed out of the Sea King royal court like a madwoman. Not only that, but he had also forced himself to put on a live show in the main hall. Instantly, the elders of the Sea Emperor Dragon Court were so angry that they were trembling. ****. Moral. Strip her of her princess title and demote her to a commoner. Chapter 1687. They knew that something was amiss with the third princess situation. However, the other party had already done the deed. Furthermore, the murder of the Sea Emperor was a serious matter. No matter how much punishment they received, it was only right. They wouldn't risk angering the Sea Emperor, much less protect the third princess. In fact, they couldn't wait to kick the third princess out of the Sea Emperor's dragon court so that she wouldn't do any more humiliating things to the Sea Emperor's dragon court. The elders of the Sea Emperor's dragon court shouted angrily. As for the eldest prince of the Sea Empire, after seeing the actions of the third princess of the Sea Empire and recalling the scene of Luo Qingtong feeding her medicine, he immediately understood. It's you? He looked at Luo Qingtong in shock and anger. He finally knew why the Ocean Emperor was fine even though he was poisoned by him and had used a large amount of medicinal liquid to activate it. She did it. This girl did it. She came to the palace and ruined his plans. That's right, it's me. Luo Qingtong looked at him indifferently, the bloody light in her eyes icy cold. Does it feel good to have ideas about my man? Her words were sent directly into the first prince's mind. However, I don't like it. Luo Qingtong's voice was cold. The curve of her lips was bloodthirsty, cold, evil, and wanton. Looking at the young girl's alluring charm, the Sea Emperor's first prince instantly recalled a piece of news from the Eastern Divine region. It was said that the genius alchemist of the Black Field, evil physician Ghost Eye, was a girl. Her name was Luo Qingtong, and she was the holy conferred princess of the Great Chu. Miss Tong, I'm sorry to have startled you. I will teach this vile creature a lesson. From now on, there is no more first prince in the Sea Emperor's dragon court. Everyone who participated in today's incident will be massacred. As the Sea Emperor's voice rang out, the first prince's eyes widened. Miss Tong? Evil physician Ghost Eye? Then the man in her arms who had turned into a silver fox, wasn't he, Lord of the Black Field? The first prince of the sea was about to shout at the top of his lungs. The man who had turned into a silver fox was the Lord of the Black Field. That man who looked down upon the entire True Spill continent with disdain, a man that no one could match. He had turned into a fox. He wanted to spread the news so that everyone would come to find trouble with them. The other party had ruined his plans and turned everything he had into nothingness. He wanted the other party to pay the price. However, no matter how hard he wanted to shout, his voice was stuck in his throat. It was as if the words Lord of the Black Field had become a taboo. Not only that, he couldn't even utter the words Evil Dr. Ghost Eye. What was going on? The first prince's face of the sea, he shouted at Luo Qingtong, what did you do to me? However, before he could finish, Yui, the first of the sea emperors, you bastard. Yu Tai. Massacre everyone. The sea emperor's palm strike sent the first prince flying with a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Then he was dragged out like a dead dog. In the end, he couldn't reveal the identity of Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. Chapter 1688. Luo Qingtong watched coldly as he was dragged out. Then she leaned over and kissed Yi Qianming, who couldn't restrain his anger and cub nature. She smiled and said, "All right, don't be angry. You won't live past today. Why are you angry with a dead person?" Luo Qingtong was amused as she watched Yi Qianren tossing and turning in her arms. Yi Qianxian was really cute after he turned into the silver fox. She didn't notice it when he had a cold face before, but now that he was emotional, he couldn't control his fox nature and started to toss and turn in her arms. That kind of angry and disdainful look was really lovable. Luo Qingtong thought and leaned over to kiss him again. Yi Qianxian coldly snorted, but the anger in his heart was appeased a lot. He shook his two little ears and raised his paws to slap Luo Qingtong's face, telling her to stay away from him. Then he hid his head in the girl's arms. When he was in human form, why didn't she come over and kiss him? Losing to her own fox form, Yi Qianren felt a wave of displeasure in her heart. He snorted coldly and didn't even want to raise his head. He didn't want to talk to Luo Qingtong at all. Luo Qingtong found it funny when she saw it throwing a tantrum. However, she didn't tease Yi Qianxian anymore. If she did, this man would explode. She didn't know how long she would have to coax him. And the most important thing was, when he returned to human form, he would come and settle the score with her. Luo Qingtong thought so, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Luo Qingtong didn't stay in the Dragon Court Palace for long. Because of the Sea Emperor's eldest prince's attempt to usurp the throne, the entire Sea Emperor's Dragon Court was in chaos. There were many people who followed the eldest prince's lead. The Sea Emperor had to deal with the matters of the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court first. Moreover, to open the forbidden area, he had to work with a few elders. Originally, this matter was more troublesome. The Sea Emperor had to find a way to persuade a few elders. But now, using the matter of the eldest prince, the Sea Emperor directly suppressed a few elders and forced them to agree to this matter. After dealing with the eldest prince and others, they would break the barrier of the forbidden area and send Luo Qingtong in. After getting a definite answer, Luo Qingtong took Yi Qianxian back to Huang Fuxi's palace. After this incident, Huang Fuxi had completely grown up. The youth looked at Luo Qingtong with admiration, worship, warmth, and dependence. However, when he looked at the others, his gaze became much colder. He began to learn to examine people's hearts. At the same time, he began to learn how to take over the forces and connections that the Sea Emperor had given him. He quickly learned and improved himself. He would be the king of the Sea Emperor's Dragon Court in the future. If he couldn't hold it up, there would be more eldest princes eyeing the throne in the future. He couldn't let his father and mother be in danger again. This time, the Sea Emperor almost had an accident. This made Huang Fuxi determined to change himself overnight. Seeing the change in the youth, Luo Qingtong felt very gratified. Huang Fuxi's kindness was his strength, but it was also his weakness. If he couldn't handle the kindness in his character well, then his kindness would be used by others and become a sharp knife to stab his loved ones. Chapter 1689. Therefore, Luo Qingtong would rather he hide his kindness and not be easily discovered by others. I have a kind heart, but I also have sharp edges. Those who treat me well, I will treat them well. Those who treat me evil, I will treat them badly. This was the true way to live in the world. While Luo Qingtong was waiting in Huang Fuxi's mansion to enter the forbidden area, a group of people stepped onto the land of Sea Emperor Island. This is Sea Emperor Island? The group of people stood next to the northern port of Sea Emperor Island and looked around. Then, the person standing at the front said in a deep voice, "Are you sure that Luo Qingtong is here?" "I'm sure. Uncle, don't worry. There's no mistake about it." "That's right." The people around him all talked at once. "We've already found out that Luo Qingtong came to the North region after leaving the Great Chu sacred dynasty. She had a conflict with someone on the Sea Monarch Island. That person is the third princess of the Sea Emperor. We've already found out that Yi Qianxian is not by her side. Obviously Ming Zun of the Black Field has something to do and left. She's alone on Sea Monarch Island right now. Uncle, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us. The group of people talked at once. The person at the front raised his head. It was none other than Uncle Zhang of the Breeze Pavilion. At this moment, he was looking coldly in the direction of the inner island of Sea Emperor Island. He laughed coldly and said, "Good. This is really a godsend opportunity. I've already said that Ming Zun of the Black Field can't be by her side all the time. Now we've seized the opportunity. Let's go. Let's go and teach that little Deceit a lesson." Yes. The people of the Breeze Pavilion were excited, especially Song Yen. Her eyes were so vicious that they were almost dripping water. "Luo Qingtong, just you wait. We'll teach you a lesson later." However, as soon as the group of people walked towards the island, they heard from the discussions of the people in the surroundings that a great change had occurred on Sea Emperor Island. Or rather, a massive change had taken place in the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Has the first prince and the third princess of the Sea Emperor been brought to justice for murdering him? Everyone in the Breeze Pavilion frowned when they heard the news. They had received news that Luo Qingtong knew someone on the Sea Monarch Island, and that person was none other than the little prince of the Sea Monarch Dragon Court, Huang Fuxi. It was thanks to him that Luo Qingtong was able to escape unscathed from the conflict with the third princess of the sea. Now that the first prince and the third princess had fallen, wouldn't Huang Fuxi's position and identity be as stable as Mount Tai? How were they going to deal with Luo Qingtong? Uncle Master Zhang was very confident that he could kill everyone from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. However, the Sea Emperor was poisoned but was saved by someone. It was obvious that it was Luo Qingtong's doing. Not only was she acquainted with Huang Fuxi, but she also saved the Sea Emperor's life. If the people from the Sea Emperor Dragon Court were to risk their lives to protect Luo Qingtong, then wouldn't the fact that they were going to kill Luo Qingtong be exposed? If the Blackfield Dark Venerate took revenge, no. They had to think of a way to ensure that Luo Qingtong's death was guaranteed. The people of the Breeze Pavilion all wore solemn expressions. Soon, Uncle Master Zhang seemed to have thought of something and waved his hand. "Let's go." The people of the Breeze Pavilion immediately followed him and left. Chapter 1690. Ah. A series of sharp and mournful cries could be heard coming from the Oceanic Beast Battalion. The third princess of the Sea Emperor lay under the bodies of the marine beasts with an indescribable expression on her face. Even so, she refused to let go of the marine beasts. Not for anything else, but the scorching aura in her body was incessantly burning her from her body to her soul. After the third princess of the Sea Emperor rushed out of the Dragon Court Palace, she pounced on countless men, but none of them could relieve the pain in her body. In the end, she lost her rationality and rushed into the Oceanic Beast Battalion. Only then was she able to alleviate the pain. However, while the burning pain in her body had been alleviated, the terrifying pain caused by the sea beasts had only just begun. However, the third princess of the Sea Emperor could not leave them. Once she left them, her body and soul would be in excruciating pain. She could only scream as she enjoyed the extreme pain and despair. These were all her plans for Luo Qingtong. She did not expect that she would have to use them all in the end. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong was not hurt at all. She heard that her brother had been sentenced to death by the family. The Dragon Court of the Sea Emperor was completely under the control of Huang Fuxi's family. As for her, she would most likely die in this filthy marine beast battalion. Ah! She could not accept it. She could not accept it. Just as the third princess of the Sea Emperor was screaming in pain and despair, a group of figures appeared in the marine beast battalion. "Bring her back." Martial Uncle Zhang threw the marine beasts on the third princess of the Sea Emperor away. He looked at the disheveled and bloody third princess of the Sea Emperor in disgust and said to the people of the Breeze Pavilion. The group of people brought the third princess of the Sea Emperor back to the place they rented. Martial Uncle Zhang fed the third princess of the Sea Emperor an antidote pill, then looked at her condescendingly and said, "We have a grudge against the foreign woman who harmed you. Do you have a way for us to kill her silently?" Martial Uncle Zhang thought for a long time. On the Sea Emperor Island, only the first prince and the third princess would be able to help them kill Luo Qingtong without alerting the Sea Emperor Dragon Court. Now that the first prince was dead, they could only rely on the third princess. Of course, if it didn't work, then they would have no choice but to attack by force. However, Martial Uncle Zhang believed that the third princess of the Sea Emperor's hatred for Luo Qingtong was so strong that she would create this opportunity for them at all costs. Not to mention this was her last chance to turn things around. Sure enough, the moment Huang Xiaolong said those words, a look of extreme hatred appeared on the third princess' face. "I can help you," she said with incomparable hatred and resentment. "But you have to help me too. I want the entire Sea Emperor Dragon Court." She wanted Huang Fuxi and the others to suffer a fate worse than death. If he hadn't helped that woman, she wouldn't have lost so badly. Since these people in front of her wanted to deal with that woman, she wouldn't interfere. However, she wanted to deal with Huang Fuxi and the others personally. She wanted them to know what it felt like to lose everything. She would crush everything that they cared about, one by one. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.